All right, so lesson 37, Jesus heals the blind here first, and then we'll see how he's rejected at Nazareth. So Matthew chapter 9, have your Bibles out so it's easy for you to follow along as well as take notes. And we start at verse 27. If we remember, last time we left off, Jesus had raised Jairus' daughter and also the woman who had the blood issue. Okay. And so we begin in verse 27. And when Jesus departed thence, 2 blind men followed him, crying and saying, Thou Son of David, have mercy on us. And when he was come into the house, the blind men came to him. And Jesus saith unto them, Believe ye that I am able to do this? They said unto him, Yea, Lord. Then touched he their eyes, saying, According to your faith be it unto you. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus straitly charged them, saying, See that no man know it. But they, when they were departed, spread abroad his fame in all that country. So let's take a look here at this story. Jesus departed thence. So he's leaving where he had been by raising Jairus' daughter. Okay. And as he's traveling, it says that 2 blind men followed him. You can imagine Jesus, okay, walking, not alone, but with his disciples and others. And here's these 2 blind men. They've probably heard the stories of Jesus and what he's done in healing people, saving them from their sins. So it's not out of line to think that that's what they were hoping for too. They wanted to be healed. So you can imagine standing in their shoes and sitting there by the roadside, maybe waiting for Jesus to come, maybe asking passerbys, people who are coming past for a while, where's Jesus? Is he coming? Is the Master coming? And finally, Jesus comes past them. And they begin to shout out those words that we see there. Thou Son of David, have mercy on us. We see them using his name here in a different way than most have used. By doing so, they show they believe who he is. Thou Son of David. He is the Messiah. Not only is he a healer, but this is the Son of God come to save us. So they make a great confession here. Hopefully we can make a confession like that too. But then they say, have mercy on us. There's 2 of them. Not just one, not have mercy on me. No, have mercy on me. But have mercy on us. Both of them together. They realize, okay, that they need Jesus' forgiveness. What's interesting is, what does Jesus do to them at first? How does Jesus treat them? How does Jesus treat them at first? Kimberly. What does it seem like? Grant? Yeah, it's like he ignores them at first. He just continues walking and goes on his way. And when he came into a house, so he goes to a house. Enters into the house. What if we were heading home and a salesman was trying to get your attention and he's just really annoying and old? You just want to get away with him. So you're looking for him. I'll get in the house here and I'll close the door and he'll leave me alone. That's not what Jesus is doing here. He's testing them. Jesus wants to see, how great is their faith? Are they persistent? Remember we learned about what Jesus taught? Ask, seek, and knock. Be vehement in your asking. Don't give in easily, but continue constantly asking for grace, asking for what we need of God. We can say that these men here are definitely persistent. Okay? And so even though Jesus goes into the house, we don't know, did he sit down in the house or did he go in and turn around and wait for the men to come through the door? But then these 2 men, they come right into the house. blind. They probably felt their way. You can imagine seeing them, feeling their way. Where's the doorway? Coming in. This isn't a house they're familiar with. They don't want to walk into anything. And they're blind and they come into the house. And maybe Jesus is there waiting for them. And he says unto them, believe ye that I am able to do this? In other words, do you believe that I'm able to heal you? Do you really believe? He's testing them. It's as though he's saying to them, do you think I'm just a doctor who can heal? I heard you calling me Son of David. Do you really believe that? Do you believe that I'm the Messiah? That I've come not only to heal your eyes, but I can also heal your hearts and save you? Or do you think I'm just some great physician who's better than all the other physicians who can make you better physically? But these two blind people answer in the affirmative, yea, Lord. Not only do we believe you can do this, Lord, but we know that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. It's always interesting here is in the Bible, Jesus healed people from afar. The centurion's daughter. Other times he touched them, but other times he didn't need to. But always in the case of being blind, he has to touch the eyes. And so, that's what he does. He goes up and he puts his hand on probably the eyes of the first young man, and his eyes are healed. And then he goes over to the second young man, and I guess we don't know if they're even young or old, but he puts his hand on their eyes. And his eyes too are healed. Imagine these two young men. It's not a slow process again. This is instantaneous. They open their eyes, and for the first time, light, color, faces, textures, everything we have that we take for granted. They could see. They probably looked around in amazement and astonishment at everything that was around them. Had they been born able to see and then were made blind? Okay. I don't know, but these are blind men. Now they can see. What great joy they probably had in that. Doesn't say that they fell down and worshipped him, but we can be sure to probably say that these two men were very thankful. They fell down on their knees and worshipped. And then Jesus tells them, see that no man know it. What an odd decree, but we've seen Jesus do this before. Sometimes he tells them to publish his fame abroad, and other times he says, no, don't do it. And that's what he does here. Don't tell anyone about this. Okay. Jesus didn't come to heal every single person with every single sickness and infirmity. Okay. He came to be, as these men now can see with their eyes, the light of the world. And so, sometimes it's always confusing for our simple minds to understand why can Jesus say sometimes to spread the fame abroad and other times not to. Why isn't he consistent? But here Jesus heals these blind men. Okay. Imagine them leaving. So they turn around in the house. Probably for the first time in years, they can walk out of the house without stumbling and bumbling along, without having to worry about tripping over something and falling down onto the ground and cracking their head open. They can walk out. They don't need to feel their way out now. And of course, they go out and they can't keep quiet about it, but instead they spread the fame abroad, we read. Okay? They tell everyone about it. We've talked in the past couple of weeks, a few times, about that Mr. Cole in Michigan who can't walk anymore and how much he says, boy, something that you got to pray about every day that we take for granted. What about our sight? What about our sight? Is that something we take for granted? It could be many a type of accident. Tonight you're putting together some toy for your brother or sister and there's batteries in it. The battery explodes and the acid flies up in your face, ruins your eyesight, you're never able to see again. Working with some chemicals and they burn the eyes. Right? Out at recess time playing softball. Softball hits you in one of your eyes. Ruins the nerves in the back of the eye and you can't see. In a car accident, can't see, something happens. Right? Or you have a degenerative disease. Maybe you saw on the front page of the paper last week about a girl there in Sun Prairie has a degenerative eye disease. She started losing her eyesight, I think, if I remember right, at like 13 or 14. She could see perfectly fine until then. But now she's got a disease. She can't see anything hardly in front of her. Okay? She's 16 years old, never be able to drive a car. Losing those things. What a terrible thing that would be. So that's something that we can learn from these gentlemen here is let's not take our eyesight for granted. It's a gift from God. If we would lose our sight, God would give us grace to get through each day. He would be able to teach and instruct us, and we would learn how to adjust. But we would miss our eyesight because all of us have had the blessing of being able to see. So let's not take that for granted there too, like these young men. So of course they would spread Jesus' fame abroad. All right, verse 32 then. As they went out, behold, they brought to him a dumb man possessed with a devil. And when the devil was cast out, the dumb spake, and the multitudes marveled, saying, it was never so seen in Israel. But the Pharisees said, he casteth out devils through the prince of devils. What does it mean to be dumb again, Faith, here in the Bible sense? Right. Our tongues are tied. This man is unable to speak. So Jesus, out the door goes those two blind men. And in comes a dumb man, brought by some of his fellow citizens or family members. They come to Jesus hoping that Jesus can heal this man. This man is dumb, not because he got in an accident with his tongue, not because his tongue was cut out, not because he never had the ability to, but because a devil is controlling this man, and the devil is tying his tongue so that this man can't do what two things? What two things would be so sad to never be able to do? Oh, he could do them mentally, but Megan, what do you think? Jesse? Well, he could read the Bible with his eyes, right? But what can't he do with his mouth? Faith? Can't talk to others, but when we have the use of the mouth, what does God say we have to do? How can we use it positively, Micah? Yeah, well, we can still pray in our minds, but what couldn't we ever do? That's an important part of our lives. Megan? Say that again? How can we praise God? What will we not be able to participate in? Jesse? Okay. Faith? Singing. Think of that. You'd never be able to sing. We can pray in our minds. This man could do that. He could pray with his mind. He could read the Bible with his mind. But he could never join the choir. He could never come to the worship service and out of his mouth would come the beautiful words and the praises. That's probably something that he missed. Right? And also being able to confess to others by word his faith. He could witness by his actions and other things. But anyways, that would be a difficult thing. He couldn't confess his sins either. I mean, in his mind he could pray to God, but he couldn't go up to someone and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So imagine that. That's what the devil in this man was doing. It was tying up his tongue, keeping him from being able to confess those things. Okay? So he comes before Jesus. We don't read much of what was said between the two or what happened. You could imagine this man coming in, family members maybe speaking to Jesus, Jesus telling the devil to leave this man. The devil leaves him, and the dumb spake, and the multitudes marveled. He began to speak again. Was it the first time ever? Was it for the first time in a few years? We don't read that. But it was never so seen in Israel. But of course, sadly then, standing probably outside the house looking in through the windows are a bunch of the leaders of the Jews who are always following Jesus looking for things that they can accuse him about. And what do the Pharisees accuse him of here? What are they whispering about outside the windows probably in the doorways after Jesus has done this? So this young man maybe departs and leaves. proclaiming praises to God with his voice. How great God is, I have my voice again. What are the Pharisees whispering to each other, Garrett?
That because he could do it, the only way he could do it is if he was the devil himself.
Same accusation we've seen before. The only way. The only person who could cast out a devil must be a devil himself. He must be the prince of devils because all of them obey him. He must be the leader. Not true. But that's what they accused Jesus of. He's cast him out through the prince of devils. And we've gone through this argument before. Jesus, we don't really read that he says anything about or even wastes his breath anymore. He's already explained that. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Okay? Devil would not cast out a devil. Then go to Mark chapter 6 here. Starting at verse 1 here. Okay, Mark chapter 6, starting at verse 1. And he went out from thence and came into his own country, and his disciples followed him. What's his own country? So he leaves this house here after healing these people, and he comes to Garrett to Nazareth. He enters back into Nazareth. If you remember way back in lesson 20, when Jesus first started his ministry, what did some people in Nazareth try to do to him? Where did they take him? And what did they try to do to him? Logan? Yeah, take him up to a high place and push him off to kill him. So Jesus is entering a dangerous place to come back here in a sense. There are people here who don't like him, they hate him, they tried to kill him. So let's see what happens. Verse 2, and when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him were astonished, saying, From whence has this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph, and of Judah and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they were offended at him. But Jesus said unto them, A prophet is not without honor, but in his own country, and among his own kin, and in his own house. And he could there do no mighty work, save that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk, and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief, and he went round about the villages, teaching. Jesus goes on the Sabbath day. It's a day of worship. Makes sense. Where should all the people be going? Well, if we were out there looking around on the streets, we'd see people coming out of their homes, cleansed, heading towards the synagogue where they could hear the leaders and the teachers, the rabbis, instruct them and guide them in God's word. And so they all head, you can see them, to the synagogue as they file in, putting some of their money into the tax, into the box there. They go in and probably see some of the Pharisees pounding on their chests, praying to God, trying to impress everybody. Begin to file in and take their places into the synagogue. Sitting down, getting ready to worship, getting ready to learn. And here, on this day in the synagogue, comes Jesus once again. And Jesus, whether there was a type of pulpit or someplace, he goes up there and he begins to preach and teach and instruct them. His words are full of wisdom. His words are full of encouragement and guidance. When his words fall on the seeds that are in the good soil, they love what he says, and they take it to heart, and they thank God for it. But most of the time, the words that Jesus is casting forth are like the seeds falling onto that hard, trampled pathway. They have hearts that don't even believe. They want nothing to do with what Jesus is saying. Oh, they can see that what this man here, Jesus, is saying is wise words, pretty intelligent words for just a carpenter, they say. And the whisperings you can imagine in the crowds, wow, listen to what this man is saying. He's a pretty well-educated man for a carpenter. Okay. Where did he get this wisdom from? He didn't go to any of the fine schools around here when he was a young boy. He went to the same schools as my children did. There's nothing special done there. He didn't go to the finer schools and the teaching institutions here. Where did he learn all these things? Where did he get this wisdom? And how is it that he can do some of these mighty works that we hear about? And they whisper, you can imagine the electricity going through the crowd. How is it that he knows all these things, that he can teach us and guide us and instruct us in all these things? You and I can look back and know because he's a Son of God. Some of the people, hey, isn't this the brother of those guys, James and Joseph and Jude and Simon? Isn't he their brother? How come he knows all this stuff? Isn't he just a regular person like the rest of us? So much so that some of them we see just like those seeds being cast onto the hard packed soil. It says there at the end of verse 5, and they were offended at him. They did not believe. Okay? They didn't like what he was saying. They wanted to view him in the earthly way, that he was just like them. He was not the Son of God, but just a man. Okay? And so we remember back, these people had tried to kill him before when he taught and instructed them. They don't think he's got anything special. He doesn't bring anything important to them. And so Jesus there, verse 4 says his words, a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country and among his own kin and in his own house. A prophet has no honor in his own country. You read. Jesus has said that before. And he could then in the next verses, he couldn't do anything. He realizes, I'm casting my seeds on hardened. So this is the second time I've been through Nazareth. And once again, my words are falling on deaf ears. I will not cast my pearls before swine then. Nothing wrong with if you go to someone and try to teach and instruct them, they don't listen. There's nothing wrong with going back a second time. Maybe if they hear it again, they'll listen. But if they continue not to listen, don't cast your pearls before swine. So Jesus sets an example here. He's gone to them twice. He's tried to teach and instruct them, but the people in Nazareth want nothing to do with him. And so, except for maybe the few believers who are there who really take what Jesus says to heart, Jesus leaves them. So he goes, and we see that he still did a few mighty works. He healed some sick folk. He went out to a few places where there are some people where God had prepared for him to do a little bit of work. But there's no sense in doing all of this mass healing and raising from the dead because it's going to unbelievers anyways. Jesus isn't going to waste his time. The only reason Jesus does these miracles and wonders is for the believers. And so, probably where there's small pockets of believers, God sends him to those locations so that they can see and know that Jesus is the Son of God. And then Jesus leaves. He marveled at their unbelief. They have the prophets. They've been taught since their young ages. Yet they would rather follow the Pharisees and all of their foolish, false teachings. And that's where we'll pick up tomorrow, where Jesus then sends out his disciples to begin their ministry so that they too can begin to do the same work that he's doing in preaching and teaching and guiding and instructing.